The beginning is a very delicate time. But who cares about that? Let's talk about the cabinet of Dr. Caligari. This is part 2 of my Halloween horror movie reviews. Last time I covered Frankenstein from 1910, which was pretty good, but it was very short and not particularly important to horror movies as a whole. In between this and Caligari, there were plenty of horror films. None of them had very much impact, though. However, in 1920, a film came out that would change horror movies forever. The movie starts with two men sitting on a bench. A woman walks past them, and one of the men notes that she is his fiancée. He then tells the other man on the bench a story that begins at a fair. This man's name is Francis, and his friend Alan accompanies him to the fair. They meet a man named Dr. Caligari, who we followed earlier as he got a permit to present at the fair. After he got the permit, the man who gave him the permit was murdered. Anyway, back to the fair. Francis and Alan watch his presentation, and Caligari brings out a somnambulist, or a sleepwalker. The sleepwalker's name is Caesar, and Caligari says that Caesar will tell the future. Alan asks Caesar when he will die, and Caesar says that he will not live to the morning. That night, Alan is killed. Francis and his fiancée Jane decide to investigate Dr. Caligari. But soon the police find a man who attempted to kill an old woman. Francis questions the man, and the man says that he did indeed attempt to kill the old woman, but not the other two. Francis then decides to spy on Caligari and Caesar, and on Caligari's Mickey Mouse gloves. But that night, Caesar, supposedly being in two places at once, sneaks into Jane's room and tries to kill her. Jane fights back, however, and is abducted by Caesar. Caesar carries her away through the window and is chased by an angry mob. After a while, Caesar lets Jane go and dies of exhaustion. Francis then finds out that the Caesar in Caligari's house was just a dummy. Soon the police show up, and in all the confusion, Caligari runs away. Francis follows Caligari to an insane asylum, where he finds out that Caligari was the director. Francis asks some of the men who work at the asylum to accompany him to Caligari's office. When they arrive there while Caligari sleeps, they find Caligari's diary. They look through it and discover that the director has an obsession with a man named Caligari, the real Caligari from the 18th century. He also had a sleepwalker named Caesar, and he also used him to commit multiple murders. Soon, the director comes back. He attacks one of the police officers who arrive at the scene, and he is restrained and locked away in his own asylum. We return to the present, where Francis is still sitting on the bench telling his story. He then stands up, and in a surprise twist ending, it is revealed that he was in the insane asylum all along. We also see Jane and Caesar, who act completely different, and we also see the director of the asylum, who now only resembles Caligari. After Francis attacks the director, he is restrained in the same cell that Caligari was restrained in the story. The director says he finally understands Francis's delusion, and the movie ends. This movie was released in Germany, and came out during a movement called German Expressionism, which had a lot of odd angles and shadows being drawn on walls, and doors being anything but square. And if you watch Tim Burton movies, you can see there's tons of inspiration taken from this. Even like Edward Scissorhands, his makeup is based off of Caesar's, and plenty of other movies take inspiration from this. This was also an early example of a twist ending. And the ending is also open to interpretation. You could just say that Francis is crazy, or maybe he was telling the truth. Who knows? Maybe everyone else is crazy and he's normal. But yeah, this was a really good movie. Much better than Frankenstein. I'd give it like 9 out of 10.